I'm Mr. Lamine.
There's a lot of things to talk about and think about, but we also have to be happy, have fun, have a good time, and remember joy, because while so much strife is around us and so much things to make us feel so confused or sometimes frightened or sad, we still have to maintain our enthusiasm for life, for helping one another, for joy. And this song is for you all.
Let's go, girls. Hello, I'm Razia Iqbal. Welcome to NewsHour from the BBC World Service. It comes to you live from our studios in central London.
I think now the narrative is a little bit different. Men are afraid that women will come and steal their jobs.
Because they are doing it.
Yeah, because to some extent...
We don't want to be resilient. We're human. We're human. We just want to live in peace. Not to go out and wonder if I'll be able to go back home safely or see my children or make it out of work. That's not what life means. No, resilience, the word resilience or categorizing.
A woman whose body was found last week and whose death has ignited the national debate about violence against women. Sarah had disappeared whilst walking home. A serving police officer has been charged with her murder. Shame on you is the chant, as there were confrontations between police and some of those who attended the vigil, with footage showing officers forcibly removing people and one woman being pinned to the ground and arrested. The protest
really got to me, and I think that for all women, and I just wanted to be here today to stand in solidarity.
And Afghanistan's media watchdog says more than 300 women journalists have left their jobs in the past 6 months because of security threats.
The start of a civil war. More than 500,000 dead, millions more forced to flee. Among them, 40-year-old Azza Abu Rubai. I meet her at her studio in Beirut, Lebanon. She sat in front of a half-completed canvas. Scattered around her are pieces that depict Syria as she remembers it.
So in 2017, when I arrived to Lebanon, I decided to draw and to explain what's happening in Syria during the revolution. And And it was very hard, like a decision and a promise between me and the devolution that I will gonna make the artworks and I will gonna tell the story.
Her art is her activism and the reason why she was arrested. She drew graffiti on the walls of Homs, a message of resistance against the government. Its forces had besieged the city, starving people into surrender.
So I drew a woman with her children and we wrote on the wall, I wrote, Aidun, or we will back.
She was imprisoned.
You know, they don't want people like us to stay in Syria. We are more dangerous than the weapon.
What would you do for love? Hundreds of Russian women have braved freezing temperatures armed with flowers to show their solidarity with female political prisoners, chanting, "Love is stronger than fear."
We're against arbitrary police violence. As you can see, we're standing here peacefully, not bothering anyone. Why should we be attacked if we're doing nothing?
Well, love is stronger than...
I can't stop smiling. It feels amazing to have my truth vindicated in a court of law. It's been 2 years and 4 months and more than 50 court appearances from Bangalore all the way to Delhi, leaving my 10-year-old behind every time. So yeah, it feels fabulous today.
Priya, it seemed to be that not just that the judge found in your favour, but he had some very strong words to say about abuse of power and how the status of a man should not confer any protection on him. What did that mean to you?
Oh yeah, I mean that was brilliant because it's quite terrifying to have a false case filed on you by a government minister. So to hear the judge sort of pointing out how powerful Akbar was very important to me, yes. And he also said that women can talk about their sexual harassment decades later and they can talk about it on any platform they want, and that the right to dignity is more important than the right to reputation. So it was a historic judgment on many fronts and one that I'm sure will be a precedent in many cases.
It's always the question when we're asking people about the Me Too movement in whatever country, will this change the culture? I mean, clearly this is a very important case. It's had a lot of publicity. Do you think it will be enough to change the culture?
It's definitely a step or 2 or 3 in the right direction. A lot of women are speaking up. Many people named in the Me Too movement were rehabilitated very quickly. This is a huge shot in the arm to the Me Too movement. I think it will empower more women to speak up, and it will also deter powerful men from filing false cases against victims of sexual harassment.
Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala today received unanimous backing to become the first woman and first African Director General of the World Trade Organization. She described her appointment as historic.
This is groundbreaking and positive. I'm grateful for the trust you have in me, not just as a woman and an African, but also in my knowledge, experience, and as some of you have said, courage and passion to work with you to undertake the wide-ranging reforms the WTO needs to reposition itself for the future.
Our lives have suffered. We have gone bankrupt for lack of money. Eating is a problem. Even dressing is a problem. Feeding the children is a problem. We have...
Women were 3% of the lawyers in the country. There were precious few on any bench, and there was no law that prohibited discrimination on the basis of gender. So legal employers were upfront in saying they didn't want any lady lawyers. And in my case, they certainly didn't want a woman who was already a mother, because my daughter was almost 4 when I graduated from law school. So it was the closed door era.
Now, who in your view is the first English feminist? On International Women's Day, Cambridge University is saying it's Mary Astell. Almost 50 books and pamphlets that belong to her have been found in the library of a Cambridge college. Renowned as a philosopher, Astell earned her reputation through her witty and impassioned writings on the status of women. 18th century, only a minority of British women could read in English, let alone in French, as Estelle could. And academics from Cambridge have discovered the extent of her scientific understanding for the first time. Let's speak to Dame Athene Donald, Master of Churchill College in Cambridge. Welcome to the programme. Tell us first about Mary Astell's significance in the history of intellectual thought.
Well, I think it's very interesting because so few women were allowed to speak out, as it were, in her day. So this was in the late 17th century. So the very fact that she published, albeit some of her stuff was published anonymously, I think shows that she really did have quite a lot of significance. She was one of those few women who did speak up about issues that were in much debate amongst men, of course.
And why would you say that she's relatively unknown?
I think in part because she was a woman, actually. It's quite easy for these figures to be forgotten if they haven't got a sort of circle around them to keep pushing their names. I mean, she could not, for instance, be a fellow of the Royal Society because they would not admit women. So that kind of coterie of intellectuals, she didn't really belong.
And so these newly recovered books show what? What is it that we are learning about her that we didn't know before these were discovered?
I think we're learning just how much she studied and thought and was really very brave in her thinking, if you like.